There is no fallen human being from God. That we are literally gods, and that is in the New Testament.
Sure. But are you capable of doing bad things? He's 13 years old? And I just got to hold my little boy. And it's like, man, like there's nothing greater than that. If you ever want like the craziest sense of adventure, like a wild goose chase, follow the living God, because he's constantly in motion. And so I'm excited today that I get to talk with you, Adrian. This has been a long time in the works, and in the last 3 hours of us prepping for this, not really prepping, just going back and forth, there's like a million different directions we could take this. But first, let me just preface it with, we are having a exploratory God discussion, and I first want to start off by honoring you, because I know a lot of individuals through business in dentistry, and yet very few of them have demonstrated such a intellectual honesty, a tenacity for like what is truth, what is reality, almost like in The Passion. Did you see the movie when Pilate's like, Veritas. What is Veritas? What is this idea of truth? Yeah. Like he was portrayed as caring about that. And there's something about you that is seemingly unrelenting about like, I want what's real. And I've referred to you as a seeker. I don't know exactly how you officially call yourself. But yeah, just welcome.
Thanks, man.
Welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. And you make it feel very comfortable to talk about these kind of things. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
Well, I do think the stories matter. But maybe before the stories, let's just give a little bit of a position.
Okay.
And so you share yours first. How about that?
You want me to give a backstory on who I am, and
no, let's do that after.
Claim?
Make a kind of a claim of like where you arrived, where you're at right now, and then we can give more of a preface to.
Okay, so I have a lot of claims. So which one do I claim here? I would say that.
Maybe not even a claim. Where are you right now? And then we can give backstory to shape the context of how you arrived here. Does that make sense?
That's fair, yeah. So I'm in a place where I have landed in my life. I'm 51 years old. And I'm not actively religiously engaged. I mean, I'm not going to a church or anything.
Not affiliated.
Not affiliated. But I do feel that I have a very active spiritual life, and so I'm trying to find. I think I've landed in a place that I'm very comfortable in, where I feel like I have established myself in a place where I accept the responsibility for my spiritual life, and I'm willing to deal with consequences of my decisions. And like, I mean, this is so ambiguous. I'm trying to like nail it. Let me back up. Let me answer that question a different way. I'm not affiliated with a religious organization right now, but I am very concerned and very interested in religious conversations. So because my goal and where I want to go in life is I believe that there is fundamental truth in the universe. I don't believe that this is a random experience. I think that there's prominence and there is like a purpose to it. but I'm not willing to make claims that are unfounded in without personal experience or very logical decision making. So it puts me in this place where I'm not an atheist, but I don't know if I'm agnostic, but I'm definitely not. I would not be considered a Christian because of some of the fundamental truth claims that Christians have. I don't agree with, but I respect Christianity because I grew up in Christianity, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't know. Is that helpful?
Yeah. So, and then where I'm at is, I know where I'm at without getting into the backstory, because we'll get there later, is I love Jesus. If people ask me, oh, like, are you a Christian? And I just typically say, yeah, I love Jesus. And if they ask, well, what denomination are you? I just say I'm trying to just follow Jesus. And I think part of me in being that way is that I don't actually know or care to know the creed and traditions of a particular orientation or church. And I get it, because then people are wanting to know, I just want to know what it is you believe, and they want to cast me into something. And it's like, well, I believe in Jesus. I'm trying to do my best to walk with him and follow him. And I've seen a lot of either crazies or people eventually lose heart and just go straight into like not believing. Like, I've seen a lot over the years. And I don't want to get into backstory, but yeah, so that's where I care deeply about maybe revealing the heart of God, if that makes sense. Maybe that's what I feel the most called to. So even in our conversation, I care less about the academic specificity of this or that. Not to say that I haven't intelligently thought about that, because that was more my start, but I don't want to get into the story. But yeah, and I love weak and broken people. And I connect that to what I would say is the heart of God, which is the Judeo-Christian God, Jesus, that just loves weak and broken people. So I guess that's where I'll probably leave that.
Cool.
So you mentioned a little bit about you were raised Christian.
I was raised Mormon. You'd probably say they weren't Christians, but I was raised Mormon, pretty Orthodox Mormon. I went on a mission, New York City. Loved my Mormon upbringing, but became disenfranchised because of a whole host of reasons. And
when? Not like year, but how old were you? Like roughly?
I was probably I would say it started when I was 29, 30 years old.
And this was like from what I understand about the LDS church is like socially it's not okay, because you kind of get like, meaning it's not okay to question it or to disassociate with it, because it's an entire community that when you're in, and if you're not in, there's even social consequences. So I'm just saying, is all of that something that you're processing during this time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say that it is. I mean, it's definitely a tight-knit community.
Just to contrast, like seeker-friendly church, let's say mega church, some casual couple goes to a mega church and they're like, I don't know if we believe in God anymore. Something happens and they just fade out. Now, I'm just saying, like, it's easier to fade out of certain communities.
Piece of cake. Yeah. Because Mormonism, the Mormon culture is highly localized. Especially in Utah, which is where I was raised. Now, if you're raised, outside of a Mormon community, outside of Utah, back east, Africa, wherever, name the place, usually the congregation that you worship with is spread out. But in Utah, growing up, like 80% of the people in the community you went to church with. You went to church with your neighbors. So it's very difficult to separate, the culture and the community from the religious experience. And so when you start moving out, everybody in your neighborhood knows that you're starting to move out, right? It's
You
not
hear
like
the whispers.
Yeah, it's not like the guy in the back of the megachurch saying, "Yes, this is ridiculous. Let's not go anymore," and nobody notices, right? This is a big deal. This is your tribe, right? It's very tribal.
So what is happening as you are starting to believe that maybe what you've arrived at, what you've been brought up to believe, isn't right or isn't correct, or you don't agree with, like, because it's kind of like a purging, like a throwing off of the traditions, the customs, all those.
Yeah.
Like, how long of a period is this?
I had an experience when it's this. I mentioned 29 years old, 30 years old, because I had an experience when I was 29 that kind of put a crack in the foundation of not just Mormonism, but Christianity. And that happened because I had an experience, as I always prayed. I've always prayed, before I go to bed, I would pray. Oftentimes I'd pray in the morning. But I had an experience when I was 29 where I was praying, and I won't go into detail of what exactly happened, but the end result was I had this just incredible experience where my body was filled with love and light and acceptance, and a very clear message that there was nothing that I needed to do in my life to help me become perfect so that I could live with God again. Okay? It would be considered kind of like, I think outside of Mormonism, it would be considered probably an experience that's likable to being born again kind of experience, right? Which I think many people might describe it that way. Well, the problem about being born again, if let's just say that's what happened, okay, is the information that I got in that experience was not just information that there's something real beyond me, validation of the existence of a universal love, right? God, or whatever you want to call that, was that I was not broken. I was not a fallen being, okay? Or if I am a fallen being, I am okay in the eyes of God as a fallen being. There's nothing that I need to do. Now, some people would argue that that claim, which is that we're saved by grace, not by works, allows me to go out and just screw around and do whatever the hell I want, right? So, but that's not what happened, okay? That's not what happened. What happened is that I found myself more clearly in tune with who I was, and I wanted to be the being that I am most relatable to that experience. So I wanted to continue to do good in my life and be kind and honest and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the problem. When you go to church, and I would imagine that this is the same in a lot of Christian churches, not all of them, but definitely in Mormonism, is that you are going back to be reminded that you need to ask for forgiveness for your sins. Christ is the center of the Mormon theology as the Savior, and provided to us an atonement through his death and resurrection, right? And that because we are fallen beings, we need to use Christ's atonement in order to be perfect. And we always have to be trying and working towards that, okay? Mormonism is a very grace plus works kind of a thing, right? And so I started to become disenfranchised with that message because I'm like, well, I already know I'm good. So why do I need to keep being reminded that I've failed, right? And so that began about a 10-year process of me kind of working my way out of Mormonism, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. But I would say that's probably a very clear moment in time that kind of began to shift for me.
So you find yourself out of the Mormon church, out of a structure, out of a form. Like, there's no form. What are you doing in this formless time? You're still feeling you're feeling a connection to God, whoever God is at this point. Are you just wrestling with, like, I don't know, like, who is this being that I'm communing with? Like, is that something that are you trying to identify it? Are you wondering what it is, who it is?
Well, I know it's God, right? I know that it's coming from a divine source. It feels eternal, infinite. You know, it's coming from the definition of what I've been told God is my whole life, right? And it's not that that's the first experience I've ever had having that. That was just a very remarkable experience that I felt like I was high for like 3 days. It resonated so fundamentally in my body that I actually changed somehow. So what happens is you would think that things would be good after that, but things were not good. Things were very, very difficult, and they were very confusing, because what I began to do is disassemble dogmatic teachings across the board. Okay, I had to start. I thought, this is the thing that I want to experience in my life. I know this is who the fundamental reality of my being is that I am okay, I'm good, I'm connected to the divine, and I'm loved, right? So how do I reconcile that with doctrine that doesn't necessarily align? So as I began to pick apart this, I don't believe that anymore. That doesn't make sense. It's not connected with that. And I don't believe that anymore. Do I even believe anymore? Do I need to believe anymore? Right? Is Christ associated with that experience? Did that happen because of Christ's sacrifice? Or is God just like that without Christ for everybody? I mean, I'm asking foundational questions that not only attack the fundamentals of Mormon theology, but Christian theology, okay? And so I began to say to myself, well, that is an experience that was so beautiful that I can see how that experience can be had by anyone on the planet, regardless of who they are or what religion they're in, because the experience wasn't related to a religious dogma. It was beyond it. It was, like I say, it wasn't attached to a theology. It was an experience of feeling and divine presence that just permeated beyond any walls or dogmatic teachings. It was something so real that it was more real than existence and life itself. And so I had to ask myself, Hindus probably have this experience. Why would they not? Why would not an atheist have this experience? I'm not suggesting, it didn't make any sense to me that that experience happened because I believed it would happen. It just happened, right? So I began to think, okay, well, is this happening to me because of something that I've done? Well, no, I don't think so. I didn't earn this in some way, right? So then you start thinking, oh, okay, well, Mormons are taught that they have the true religion, just like, Christians think that they've got the true religion, and just like Muhammad or Muslims think they've got the true God. I start thinking, that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense that there's one theological definition that could actually explain the experience that I had. Okay? Now you could take the experience that I had and you could map it with Christianity. You could map it with Mormonism. You could map it with Hinduism, so on and so forth, okay, to give it a definition and explanation. But it was very clear to me that the experience was foundational to human existence and our relationship with the divine. So as you start thinking about, okay, well, is this experience because I've done something or because where I'm at, or is it just because of who I am? And I have to assume that you're the same, and that person's the same, and that person's the same. And that's the direction that I went. So when you start saying to yourself, I'm divine, and I know that I am, and that means you're divine, and I know that you're divine, you may not know you're divine, but I know you're divine, then all of a sudden the walls start kind of collapsing in between theological ideas. And you get to something that is foundationally true for all humanity. Okay? And I started there, and I tore down all of the other stuff, and I rebuilt from that experience. So I rebuilt my religious, spiritual life from not stories in the Bible, right? Not stories in the Bhagavad Gita, not Jewish mystic stories, not the Old Testament, not Rumi, okay? I built it from my own gospel, from the experiences that I began having with the divine. And that's where I've landed. And it's very clear to me that when I talk with somebody, regardless of where they come from, if they begin explaining their relationship with the divine, it's very clear to me that they're having the same experience that I'm having, okay? Some people don't because they're not ready for it yet, but I'm seeing there's a fundamental reality, and it's the same for everybody, okay? Some people see it, some people don't. When people see it, it's so magnificent, it's so mysterious that it freaks them out, and they have to try and explain it. But I don't think it can be explained. And so I have held back from saying, yeah, it's Jesus, okay? Because that didn't come to me in the experience. This experience happened, but Jesus didn't identify itself or his self or whatever in the experience. It was just something beyond explanation.
But if you had to put adjectives on it, kind of like you did, it would be light, love, good, like not oppression, not unclean, didn't make you feel shame.
No, none of it. None of that was there.
So I guess part of my question would be in this understanding, in this kind of structure of there is the divine, and we're part of the divine, even if we're not ready for it yet, even if we're closed off to it in our bodies and maybe just kind of pushing it down, allowing us to just be in our head and just be intellectual about life, maybe more erring on the materialistic. Where does, like, if that experience points to something that's divine, that is good, where is the source or origin of evil?
That is a really good question. The problem of evil is not a new concept. I mean, people have been trying to figure that shit out from the beginning of time. So, I have fallen into, I'm more Platonic in this, okay, in my explanation of the problem of evil. So I think I'm not bastardizing Platonism here, but Plato said there is something that's the one, the good, that's behind everything, okay? That is very similar, at least in my own mind, to the explanation of how non-dual Hinduism is taught, that there is an essence that is eternal, it is one, that is foundational to reality, okay? If you get into Jewish mysticism, I think that they would explain God in the same way. It is a oneness, a wholeness, and it's not, as soon as you begin to give it attributes, when you give it an attribute, it diminishes its power because it's something, if it is one thing, it's not something else, okay? So this thing, okay, I'll call this thing God, so get an image of a man out of your head or whatever, but we'll call this the one or the good, okay? And within it is all of reality, positive and negative, okay? Wickedness, goodness, it's all inside of it, okay? So it's impossible to have goodness without wickedness, or find the antithetical attribute or whatever it might be. It's impossible to have one and not have the other. So in Christianity, as far as I can tell, Christianity takes a step down and says God is just all good and not evil. Okay? But you run into the problem of evil arguments when you take that step down from this global oneness. Okay? Which is, well, if God is all good, how could he allow children to have cancer? Right? How would he allow this to happen, or the tsunami to wipe away 150,000 Filipinos? How is that possible, that there's evil in the world with an eternally good God? I don't say that God does that. I think that God is above good and evil, beyond it. Okay? And that there is a harmony that exists in the oneness of good and evil. And it's all contained inside of one consciousness. If it's not that, then the God, if it's only good, is diminished because it doesn't contain or able to attribute wickedness, which is a thing in and of itself, right? So I play up. I like to play in the game that God is a reality above good and evil, beyond good and evil, like Nietzsche said.
Okay, because I thought it sounded like you were saying both at one point, like good and evil exists in God.
I am saying that.
But he's above it as well.
I'm saying that good and evil exist within the totality of what God is.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, because so I think the problem of suffering is different than the location or locality of evil. And there's a connection for sure, but I'm just saying, like, it's good for me to know that you're saying the source of evil is in the same
If God, there's a logical framework for this. If God is from beginning to end, omnipresent, omnipotent in all of eternity, it's beyond explanation. Okay, God is ineffable to some degree. Okay, then if evil exists outside of God, but God is everything, how do you reconcile that?
Yes. Oh, wow.
That's the issue.
Yeah. For
so
sure.
What Plato says, what non-dual Hinduism says, what mystic Judaism say is that the final position of reality is one of oneness that includes everything. And it is one and it is harmonious, like the yin yang. It's harmonious. It contains what is wicked and what is good inside of it. That's what makes it whole. And we have that inside of us. We all have all of the divinity and all of the wickedness inside of us, and we have a choice of how we're going to manage that, right? So I don't like to take it one step. I don't like to break it down and say, well, God is just good, because then you run into the problem of evil or problem of suffering, and I don't know how to handle it. I don't know if anybody's ever handled it.
Right, but that's the problem. Like, that's the problem I'm against. So I understand your position. I think there is some unity in it because it's unified. I agree that it makes it so, yeah, you don't have to worry about the problem of suffering like I do, because, like, believing that Jesus is light and the Father is a Father of lights and in him is no darkness, like, to me, that at least makes sense in terms of...
But you can't have light without darkness. It doesn't exist. If there's no darkness and everything is light, light doesn't exist. It only exists in contrast to darkness.
Right, but I don't know if that's a matter of, like, substance or if it's just a matter of reality. Like there's a chance for darkness maybe because of choice, but it doesn't mean that God can't choose to just emit light all the time because he's good.
Yeah, I can't remember the early Christian, maybe Athanasius or somebody that was trying to argue this, trying to solve the problem of suffering and problem of evil.
Well, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I think there has to be, in order for God to be a God of love, even within...
Or origin, maybe it was origin, sorry.
Even within himself, I think that means God could be capable, has the ability to not be loving other than that's his nature to be loving. But like, it's not like he can't choose something unloving. He just doesn't.
Well,
so that's
hold on.
why.
But here, I think fundamentally you're thinking about it different than I'm thinking about it. When I say that God is a oneness, there's no mind there.
Right, but I don't know how you take an abstraction and like an abstraction to me is beneath intelligence.
I'm not following you.
I'm just saying, like, it's almost like the Greeks make heaven very ethereal. Like we're on clouds. It's an abstraction almost. Like there's just this knowing and this presence, but there's nothing physical. And yet the Hebraic mindset was like, no, there's a literal heaven. It's a literal place. We're going to have literal bodies that are going to be, there's different dimensions open to us. But it's almost like there's nothing that's much more glorious than our human existence except elevated on a plane. But the second we go abstract, I think that's lesser, I guess is my point. Like the fact that we have intelligence, I can't imagine ultimate reality not having a greater intelligence.
Well, when you use the word intelligence, I want to make sure that the definition of what intelligence is in your how you define it, to make sure that I understand where intelligence would fit in my view.
Conscience, cognition with
consciousness or cognition.
I don't know enough to know the difference between how I would.
Cognition would be a machine, a brain producing thinking. Consciousness is awareness of reality. It's awareness, not cognition. So intelligence.
Well, I think it's both. Like I think it's a combination, and probably there's some other components I'm missing. Like I am not smart enough to.
So you're saying that the definition of God, as the way that the words that you're using when you're talking about God, is one of cognition and consciousness
and intelligence.
And intelligence.
Yep.
Okay. So if God has a form of cognition, let's just stay there, then that means that there is some sort of a brain working.
Yeah.
Okay.
That connects to some entity.
Okay.
Some source of being.
Okay.
Because I'm saying, like, let's just say it was just energy, like almost like something that is.
Okay.
But there's no, like, to say that God would then have some sort of heart or could care or could not care. I think in the example of abstraction, energy, simply light, like then it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Like, I don't know if how you could attribute love to something, because love is not a. Love doesn't. I don't think you can have love without some sort of conscience, intelligent. Like, does that make sense? Like, there's something where, like, to be able to love, that means you also have the choice not to love, which demands, like, if there's choice, there's intelligence. Like, it can't just be a law. Like, because a law is. The law of gravity is regardless. You know, it doesn't matter what color skin you are, how fat you are, what race. If you step over a ledge, the law of gravity is equal to everybody, and it just, you die or fall. And I don't think God is like that, where it's simply like a law that's indifferent, that's just is.
Okay, so I understand why. I think I understand. Let me just so the definition, the attribute. There are attributes that you are associating with your definition of God, and some of those attributes are light, goodness, peace, love. All these things. Okay, intelligence, which is a decision making. You're associating intelligence with making a decision.
Yep.
Okay, cognition. Okay.
Like, because laws don't decide. That's all I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
A law is, we don't argue with laws. They are.
Okay.
But they don't decide.
So
no
you would say that
preference.
laws are more foundational to God in this situation?
I think they're more like the substructure per se versus like you can have a home and the wood is just going to be wood. It can't choose not to be wood. But without people in that, it's just a house. It's just a building, but it's not a home. So I'm saying, like, God makes everything the home.
Okay, so is goodness a law?
No.
Is love a law?
No. It could be measured against the moral law, but it's not.
Okay, then what's a law? Give me an example of what a law is.
A
That's
law,
foundational.
Well, I think I just said it. Like, it's like goodness and love are virtues that a being would be able to express, manifest, choose to align, I don't know, release, whatever.
Okay.
But like a nature or a law is kind of what guides it. I don't know. I don't know if
Is evil a law?
No.
Or is it created through a decision?
I think evil is similar to good in the sense that it's like I don't know, it's more like a frequency or an energy that you can either participate in or not participate in. But I think the law would just be like that. I think that's just morality would be the law, but like you don't express morality, you express goodness, which fulfills morality.
But morality is an idea that decisions must be made a certain way.
Right. And I think that's the structure of the law per se. Like don't take a life.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. So now you have God here, some kind of a cognition, decision-making intelligence. Okay. And it is being bound by moral laws to make decisions. Because morality is foundational.
Right.
It has to make a decision to do good, not evil.
But I think it's more like it's in the DNA of God what morality is. It's not like it's outside of God dictating to God.
Well, then I think
God doesn't
that
have a rule book outside of him that he's having to submit to. God is
the law.
Right, that's the question. If God is, then where in that is evil? And I'm thinking it's not in the nature, it's in the possibility or opportunity to take what's within your nature but not act on it.
So the philosophical problem that we run into when we get to this point, one of them among many, is that if God is defined as the beginning and the end, eternal, it is all, the all, okay, then you have to say, well, God is not the beginning and the end. The beginning and the end means everything. That's what it means.
Totality.
It's totality, okay? If you say that God is the beginning and the end, and I would say that you and I would agree that that's probably a good definition of how we would see God. You would say God is the beginning and the end except for all of the evil.
No, I don't think he's responsible for the evil, but the evil is within God's own capacity to be evil. He's just not. Like meaning
so then how do you then where is the evil coming from? Because if he chooses not to be evil, where does wickedness come from?
I think it's still within the I don't know locality if it's in God, but or else how could God be a God of love?
Mm-hmm.
Because how could God, if God isn't choosing love, it's not love. Like if God's bound to only represent something that us humans receive as love and called love, then that's not love. Because it's kind of like if all I could do is just express and emit and release anything that you deem is loving or the world deems as loving, I'm not actually, I don't know if that's actually called love. It might be nice, it might be kind, it might be good, but I think to be able to love means you have the capacity to be selfish, and yet you choose, like you have another option, you have another propensity to also do something, and yet you're like, but I'm choosing love. It's not just the easiest thing. It's almost like Christ in the Bible when he's like, if you say you love your brother whom you can see, you say you love God who you can't see, but you don't love your brother who you can see.
What's the point? Right.
There's some hypocrisy here. Oh, you're being super faithful to the God that you don't see, but then the people that are in your life, you're assholes too.
Yeah.
That doesn't equate. and if you only are good to those that are good to you, I tell you to love your enemies, which means it's not a natural, the sun shines, it hits something and it reflects, it cause and effect. If you hit me, I hit you, cause and effect. Like this is like, no, if you hit me, I turn the other cheek and take it because I have compassion on the fact that you're hurting and I see you. Like that means altogether it's still, there's a choice there, and there's almost like an expression of virtue when you have the choice not to. I don't understand. Does that mean God could be evil, selfish, malicious? It's not in his character, but could it be in his makeup? Like that he has the propensity to do that, or the possibility, or the capability? I don't know. Because if not, then it is somewhere outside of God, right. Which means like where does it exist? Yeah. Where is the source of it? Because it didn't just originate when Lucifer, like according to the biblical tale, right? Lucifer decided he wanted to be like God. Mm-hmm. So original sin in the garden, be like God. Original sin in the heavens, I want to be like God and be worshiped. So like was evil just there in a dimension and he tapped into it? And if like I don't know. I don't know what the multi-dimensions are, and God who created existence created something so that outside of him but inside the structure of life there's a opportunity to connect with evil. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to figure it out. I mean, this has been studied. There's been 10,000 books written on this trying to figure it out. For me,
but wait, kind of push back on the love thing. I just want, like, do you think, am I off on the idea that like, if God can only be something that is virtuous, like, can love be love even if that's all you can do? If there's zero choice, if I'm just...
Well, I don't think that God's making a choice. I'm not sure I can justify in my head an idea that God is making God is cognitive and making decisions to influence reality. I see reality more as it is all God anyway. And when evil things happen, it's just part of reality and part of God. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think God makes evil things happen, and I don't think God makes good things happen. I don't think that God influences our lives in the way that you might be thinking about it. That God's sitting somewhere, infinite knowledge, and says, it's time for me to step in. I need to help my child. I don't think God does that.
Well, I do, but I would say that's what I would regard as a miracle. So almost like John Lennox from Oxford or Cambridge, mathematician, old guy, really cool, basically says like when a miracle happens, like God has the ability to feed a new event into the closed system, right. Like the Matrix. But like most of existence just runs on individuals and their autonomy, and then consequence of decisions. And I think God set it up so that since, again, I believe we were given dominion of the earth and we're stewards of it, the consequence is our own, even if it's not our fault of like people sowing sin.
Let me put a bow around the nature of God, and then we'll move into this miracle conversation. So where I'm coming from on this is, I don't think that I in this life will be able to figure out or how to solve the problem of evil or the problem of suffering. And the arguments that are made in the apologetic arguments that are made in order to justify the belief system that God is that God is infusing itself into the world to cause goodness or cause wickedness is untenable. Meaning, I don't think that there's a healthy belief system for me, or an argument or a thought that can justify how to solve that problem when the belief system is conditional upon God kind of like injecting itself into reality, okay? I don't think I'm going to be able to solve that. And this goes back to our conversation at lunch about the Amalekites, right? In the Old Testament, like, God's not, I can't agree. I don't care what story or how you justify it. I do not agree that God would come in and tell the Jews to go commit genocide. I don't think God told Hitler to commit genocide. I don't think God told the Christians to go commit genocide in Jerusalem, to take over land. I think it's all man-made justification. I do not think that God gets involved to that level in human existence. Now, that's not to say that God isn't in as an influence in it, okay? So moving from that kind of conversation. So I position myself with the idea that God is non-dual. Panpsychism is another description of what I think the ultimate reality is. Everything is conscious. We are all we're all the same being experiencing life through different brains, okay? You and I fundamentally are the same consciousness. We just happen to be seeing each other as different people right now. And when we pass through the veil, we move back into that ultimate oneness. That's this very Eastern kind of philosophical position, okay? And it tends to solve the problem of evil for me, but we'll put a bow on that, okay? So let's talk about miracles, okay? So with my idea that consciousness, this would be my claim. My claim is that consciousness is not created in the brain. Consciousness is the fundamental reality of the universe, okay? That it's not matter, it's consciousness that is this foundational, okay? And we are tuning forks, our brains are tuning forks to consciousness. So we pull into us, and I would say God is consciousness. We pull into us the conscious experience. So God and myself are experiencing life one and the same, okay? And so the way I handle miracles is that I don't need to pray to God and ask God to change physics to come in and change the world. I have the ability to do that through my own divine right because God, the ultimate reality of who I am, is God, and so are you, okay? So we have this capability not from an outside force. We're inside of it. We're in the center of God. God's not out there. We're in the belly of God, okay? God is all around us. Consciousness is all around us. So when miracles happen, those things happen because we have the capability of fundamentally changing reality because we're tied right to the heart of it. Now, I don't know exactly how it works. So when I've had miracles happen in my life where I've been healed and like, how the hell did that happen? Things like that, you know? Miracles happen more often than you would think, okay? So like, how does our experience of reality constantly have these freaking miracles happening? Well, it's because there's something not seen in how reality works, that we don't understand how it works, but it shifts and changes and causes flux in our experience. I just don't think it's a guy sitting out there going, "Oh, okay, I'll go help him now." You know, I don't think that's it. I think it's much, much more intimate in our experience.
Well, I would say there's nothing more intimate than the Christian portrayal of God, though.
In what way?
Well, God, being that he's Father, Son, and Spirit, he's like it's a benefit for you guys if I go to the Father, because then the Helper comes and like he actually fills you the same way that the Spirit filled him. Pentecost, dove descends. Actually, sorry, that's not Pentecost. That was when John baptized Jesus and the Spirit descended on him. So the idea that we get Christ in us, the hope of glory, is what you're saying of like, there's nothing more intimate than that and nothing more scandalous. Like the idea that like, I don't know. My kids always get mad at me when I say this, but it's like every healthy person has to take a crap. Like everybody does. And I don't think anybody, whether they're a model or whether they're Brad Pitt, is glorious in that moment of having to go to the bathroom. And I'm sharing that just because, like, I'm sure the angels look at us and they're like, God, why?
Why pooping?
Why? No, why do you set your affection on them?
Why would you say that, though? Why would you believe that narrative is actually happening?
Which part?
That God's looking, the angels are talking to God saying, look at these fallen individual. Why is that a narrative?
Because it's easy to personify. I think there's a big disservice to God when we take our experience and then we make some idea of God that is, again, so far outside of our experience that we can package it how we want to into some sort of an abstraction, versus like
give me an example.
What we know is we know fathers, mothers, children.
Oh, you're using the family unit.
We know husbands, wives. We know people interacting with people. Mm-hmm. We know intimacy in terms of those two different examples I already gave you. So to think that like my experience of humor, delight, joy, emotions, I see that in the portrayal from Genesis to Revelation, and the idea of God feeling, God having passion, God caring, God lamenting, God having long suffering, God writing in his story that if I'm going to rescue humanity, I'm going to do it by actually incarnating, which is like despicable for God to take on flesh, and then like walking it out with such humility unto death. Like I always think in terms of narratives in a human way, because I don't think that God's experience is greater, but greater doesn't have to mean altogether different. Like he can't relate to that, or like the angels have never wondered, why would you set your affection on these people that continually harden their heart toward you? Every time you give them a gift, they walk off and do something with it. They build their own kingdoms. They're like prodigals. I'm just saying the angels that gaze upon him in Revelation 4 and are crying out, holy, holy, holy. I believe they're the ones that do a lot of bidding in the second heavens. It talks about that. Are you familiar with the idea of the second heavens, first, second, third?
Yeah.
From Mormonism?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So second heavens is like where there's supposed warfare. That's where demons and angels might battle. So like in the Old Testament, Elijah prayed for something, and like on day 21, all of a sudden the archangel shows up and he's like, I heard you, or God heard you the first time and dispatched me day one, but I had to fight with the prince of Persia or something like that in the principalities before I got here, because I couldn't actually deliver the message because there's not this idea of open heavens. And I think this is where a lot of people don't understand answered prayer, because we assume it's like Jacob's ladder was this open heaven, which means if I pray, God hears and delivers a message, and it's just like boom, boom, it's simple. And if that doesn't happen, then God must not care. But that's the whole idea of evil. It's like the idea that like you can hear something good, hear something from God, an angel, but not acknowledge that there's a demonic, dark princes, structure, governments that also exist. Like if there's not warfare, almost everything that we can conclude doesn't make sense outside of that condition. So I don't know if you've given much thought to that. I don't know how expressly communicated that is. Not biblically, I'm sure that's there in Mormonism, but I'm just saying, even in Christianity, the church I go to, my pastor, I guess, has just been very involved in what he calls spiritual warfare. And prior to that, I'd never really heard much about it. Mm-hmm. But now being there for 20 years and seeing some stuff, that's not our main focus, but that's one of the things that I think is a paradigm that helps me understand evil when things don't always work out, because it's not simply humans. But sorry, so back to the original point though, what you asked me about is like, why did I write that narrative and explain it that way? Well, because I feel like I know a little bit about God and the way that he reveals himself through the scriptures of this is how he talks. I know it sounds scandalous.
Let me ask you a question. Sure. to pull it together. Have you had an experience, an actual experience internally where you felt that the angels were recognizing you as a fallen being and saying, God, why are you even paying attention to him? And God is saying to the angels, hey, I got this. Let me help him out. Have you had that experience?
No, I would say I've just had but I've just had like a humorous let's just say imagining of like the angels probably don't get it. That is my point.
Okay.
Because they see the flawless God and then they see us and they're just like,
okay, but here's the thing.
I'm embellishing.
When you embellish and use a humorous example, I don't know if it's actually part of your theological view or if you're just being humorous.
No, but it really is. I believe that, but I don't believe it because of an experience or because of some revelation.
Okay, so then
I believe it because of intuiting.
Then what I would say is this, is where we diverge in the way that we establish truth for our lives or establish reality, let's say, is I have decided that I'm not going to use a story in a book to help figure out the architecture of reality within my own existence, okay? I'm not going to the Bible. I'm not going to the New Testament. I'm not going to any of these books and going, I think that's the format for how I should see reality. What I'm doing is I have enough faith to know that if I go sit and I meditate deep enough and pray deep enough, God will reveal the thing to me. I have no question in my mind that happens. So if I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the angels look down upon us like we're fallen beings, and God has to step in to establish that narrative, to explain what life is like, I'll go ask. And if I get nothing, then I know that the mythological story is just a story. It can't be justified in my own experience. Do you see what I'm saying? So
I do, yeah.
So
totally.
what I'm saying is so when you said to me, well, the angels are looking down on these humans, and God stepped into the human body, which has to be like, so like, I don't know the word you use, embarrassing, or just like us stepping into a pig or something like that. How do you know? How do you know that? Because the experience that I had when I was 29 is that we are more divine and glorious than we could ever imagine. There is no fallen human being from God. That we are literally gods, and that is in the New Testament.
Sure. But are you capable of doing bad things?
Absolutely.
Well, so how do you reconcile that? Like, how do you reconcile
Well, why would I not be
capable
capable of doing bad things? What does that mean?
Well, no. I'm just saying, so you look at someone that is divine or capable of being divine, and yet they're a murderer. Like,
okay, yeah.
So an angel wouldn't look at that and say that's divine. They'd say that's detestable.
I don't know why the angels are looking anyway.
Because they can see.
Okay, all right. I've never run into any angels. So.
Okay, well, that doesn't mean other people haven't.
No, that's fine. I just never had the experience of angels.
Sure. But I don't think you honestly, I don't think you limit everything you understand about God to your experience.
I try to.
Okay, so I don't know how tenable that is. Like, meaning, like, I have tier one, like everyone does, right? Like, there's some things that I absolutely believe that are so strong based off of, it's confirmed by experience, but like, the Bible wasn't given to us just so we can disregard it and believe in experience. Like, part of what you detest about the Christian extremists that say God told me is something that almost could be backed up in your own experience, because they might have had an experience where they sat before God and heard something and have conviction with it. So I'm just saying there's a certain humility.
So you're saying that I'm making myself susceptible to being deceived.
There's a certain accountability where it's like, regardless of what I think I'm experiencing or hearing, I'm also just falling back on the tried and true, Jesus is Lord, I'm going to submit to him, so like, even like an interesting thing, I mean, I don't want to move on from that. Let's just, yes, I think. Okay. Well, I have other things I want to say. Okay, so sorry. So one of the things you mentioned about the church, it's definitely true. I went to a lot of Catholic, not a lot. I went to some Catholic churches growing up because my dad grew up Catholic, and He wanted us to just understand what it was like, because he didn't feel like he was actually saved until he gave his life to Jesus in college, because someone, they're working some late night shift, and he's like, what is it you have? And the guy's like, I have Jesus. And he's like, no, I know Jesus. I've been Catholic. He's like, no, I have Jesus inside of me. He accepted Jesus. His life changed. Cool. And my dad has a really cool testimony and everything like that. But so we still went to some Catholic churches every now and then, just because he just wanted us to experience Mass and what it was like. And there's even some Christian denominations where it's like very much, I think the best strategy to keep you as a holy person is for you to feel like you are so worthless and beaten down and undeserving. And that's why, thank God, Jesus saved you. And you need to be so thankful, because without Jesus, you are just a mess. And the irony is, I do believe without Jesus, I'm a mess, but not in that way. So for example, like we take communion now every Sunday. But like the way that my pastor, we didn't even do it for the longest time. And I say that because remember, I've been there 20 years. So it's like, I don't just go from church to church. And the only, like his whole reason of why we take communion is just because his whole reference kind of like why we want the bread in the cup, which is like the whole eat my flesh, drink my blood, is because as you put any of your shortcomings under the blood of Jesus, it just kind of keeps doors closed so that you can't, you're not giving a foothold for the enemy or seeds to grow that could be open doors to steal, kill, and destroy. It says the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So, I mean, it's not because we're so like the blood redeemed us and covered us once and for all, but we want to keep as a practice putting anything that comes up in us that's like, I know if I start focusing on something, almost like a little bad seed, just like in the earth, and I water it and I tend to it, it's going to sprout something.
Yeah.
And if it's a good seed, it's going to be something and it's going to have good fruit and we're all going to be happy.
Yeah.
If it's something bad, I've watered bad things before. I've said goodnight. I've turned over. I've closed my eyes, and in the sanctity, in the sanctuary of my inner being where nobody knows but me and God, I've thought about things that weren't good and incubated and developed and cultivated until those things from just one seed brought forth death in a community, in a family. So I like, meaning I don't need to have an experience in terms of like before God to be able to connect the dots on like all the faculties we have. We have so many faculties to be like, sure, we have reason, but we also have, wisdom to be able to connect dots. Some people learn from the sting of the whip. Some people learn from reading books. Sometimes I've been one where it's like, I have to actually scrape my knee to be like, okay, God, I shouldn't be that reckless on a bike. The other one is like you read someone and they were reckless on a bike and got hurt, and you're like, I shouldn't be reckless on a bike.
Right.
Like you can learn in different ways. And I think if what I understand you are saying though, that I do admire, is that you're not willing to almost at like the highest level or the deepest level, whichever way you want to look at it, accept some big truth claim simply without some sort of experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the peripheral stuff, I'm sure you're intuiting, filling in the gaps. Like,
yeah, I think so. I mean, there are things that I do believe. I believe that if, like I just said, what I've tried to do is I've tried to remove as much belief system processing and replace that with experience that justifies knowledge. Okay? So you don't have to believe when you know. Belief goes away. Hope goes away and belief go away when you know something to be correct, right? So I just feel like at the belief level, there's a lot of ambiguity, okay? And once you come to know something, it's clearer and there's obviously less ambiguity. So like going back to where we got started on this was that we were talking about, were we talking about the stories in the book, in the Old Testament? No, we were talking about the angel.
The angel.
Yeah, which came out of Revelation. Well, you were pulling some of this stuff, this allegory and stuff, kind of from the Revelations in the New Testament. Okay, so
and the Old Testament of I prayed 21 days later, Daniel, God answers and sent a messenger, which was an angel, but he had to fight against another angel.
Right. So let me actually ignore what I just said. Let me just reframe this so we can kind of like repackage this and talk further about it. So it's very clear to me, at least for me, okay, in my life, that at some point in my life, I got to the point where reading stories, whether they're legitimately true and it happened or not, or mythological or allegorical, okay, reading those stories became less effective of teaching me moral principles, but that I could find those moral principles through my own experience and through my own work, okay? And I'm not bragging. I'm not saying this as a prideful person, but as I've talked with family members, good friends, and I begin to talk about this, it's very foreign. They don't understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so for example, I asked you earlier if you've had an experience with the angels. And you're like, no, but it's just a good allegory, a good story to try and like come up with a concept that kind of makes sense. Okay, I would basically,
well, because I believe in all the components of it. Like I believe the angels exist.
Okay,
like I have reason to believe all that stuff. So,
but why do you believe it?
Well,
other than it's written in the Bible,
stories
okay.
from people.
Have
from people.
You had your own experience with an angel?
No.
Okay, so what I would say to you is possibly, maybe.
Not like, I've been in stuff where people are like, oh yeah, there's an angel behind you. Okay. Supposedly I have like some little things here, but nothing where it's like a biblical like terror.
Yeah. Oh, geez, an angel.
No,
right. Okay.
Nothing like that.
All right. So what I would say is this, is that the claims of Christianity, if true, is not only the greatest story ever told, if they are literally true, you and I should be on the freaking corner of the busiest street in Phoenix screaming at the top of our lungs about the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Human nature.
Okay? All right. We don't do that because, number one, I don't believe they're literally true. Okay?
No, but I do, and I'm not screaming.
Okay, that's fine. But
I get your point.
You get my point. You get my point. Okay. So if that is
sins are forgiven.
Yeah. All that. We're that guy, right?
Yeah.
We're that guy. So obviously we're not doing that. Probably because it's not appropriate and it's a little bizarre, but whatever. Anyway, but the whole idea here is that the claims in the theology are so powerful that they would require a type of reaction to change our behavior fundamentally. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you start using,
it's not like a part-time belief.
No, it's like
all in or nothing.
It's all in.
Yeah.
You're freaking all in.
Totally.
Okay. And if you're all in, if I am going to say I am all in on Christianity, I am not going to commit to that based on a belief system, on a story. I want to have the experience myself.
Okay, but I think I'm going to push back on you. Really firm
well,
here.
before you push back, I'll say this. It is promised that if we want answers in the New Testament and Christ's teachings, that God will give us the answers.
Yeah. If we seek, we'll find. Yeah.
If we seek, we shall find. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I am relying on that principle as a foundational principle that's in the New Testament that helps me to justify my belief system. If I can't find the answer, not through a story, but through an experience that I have, a transcendental experience with the divine, I am not going to change my life for it.
Okay, so I wonder. Okay, so what I'm hearing is you've experienced God, but there's still a bridge, a gap, a chasm between you experiencing God as Jesus,
right?
And until something happens that would connect that dot, you, in the most earnest way, you're like, I'm guarding that in a way of protecting truth of like, I'm not just going to put on the glasses, drink the Kool-Aid, do it because someone else said, because that's almost violating my personal standard of a lover of reality to succumb to making that connection any other way other than show me in the most pure, undefiled way. Does that sound?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing I was going to get pushback on, I don't really know if it could have been a mischaracterization of what you were saying, because I think all you need is one experience if it's big enough, and that fills in the gaps for everything else. Like now all I mean by that is this. So, let's say somehow you got separated from your dad at birth. I don't know why. He's off at war. They pronounced him dead. Somehow, prisoner of war 30 years later comes and meets you. And you didn't know he was alive this whole time. It's crazy. You spend 2 hours with them. You're talking. You can hug him. He's real. And then now all of a sudden, I don't know, something happens. He gets taken out. I don't know. Last moments with him. Like, you had that experience, but now when your mom tells you something about him or someone else tells you something about him, like, you have no reason not to believe it because you knew him and you met him and you knew he was real. So, like, you don't need all those other moments that he could have told you about or someone else could to experience to know that they're true, because you already experienced him.
Right.
Like meaning, for me, it's like to experience Christ, the peripheral stuff, it's like, I don't know. He's preeminent. Like, meaning, like, this is like when Mormons come to my door. Again, it's a little different, but sort of similar. They talk to me, and I'm like, okay. They're like, you Mormon? I'm like, no. They know I'm not Mormon. Obviously, that's why they're showing up.
You look Mormon.
I probably do. Yeah. And my whole thing to them, and maybe it's goofy, but I'm like, okay, guys, if I already have an audience with the Father, and I have His Spirit living inside of me, what do you have to offer me? And then they say something about the priesthood. Mm-hmm. Which actually does what, though? Does it give me a better audience with the Father? No. Does it allow the Spirit to dwell inside of me again in a better way? No. Okay, so if I already have God inside of me and I can be seated with Christ at the right hand of the Father, what are you giving me? A tradition of man? Something in your church? Some order? Like I don't understand. There's no promotion beyond to know him and to desire to know nothing among you but Christ and him crucified, as Paul would say. And that's the coolest thing, is like Paul had so many mysteries. He knew all these things, and yet he said, I desire to know nothing among you but Christ and him crucified. Like, meaning, like, I don't care to try to know the mysteries. I've centered it that it's about the man, Jesus Christ, being God and knowing him. Not the other stuff. That's eternal life. To live as Christ, to die as gain. And that's been my plumb line, because I've seen so many, like, and this is probably something you probably could agree with me on in the sense that, like, if you knew the way that I lead my home, I don't want my kids getting consumed by Christian culture. We don't listen to Christian music because that's what Christians ought to do. We don't read Christian books because that's what Christians ought to do. I'm very aware that you can be raised in a Christian society and it doesn't mean anything, and be raised in a Christian culture and never know God on the inside.
Right.
And you're actually more in danger of being deceived because you think you know God, but you don't. It's a form of God, but he's not there. And that's why it's like we go to the most unchurched church that's offensive in every sort of way. Where it is, how it looks, the people that show up. The worship's terrible. No offense to the worship leaders. You guys are great. But meaning, like, it's just not, there's no production. There's no fanfare. There's no programs. We just feel like God called us there. And our pastor's a guy that loves and he's humble. And I was raised in a way, aside from my parents doing a great job, where I got really zealous for a period. And I was self-righteous. And I was a good kid. And I did the right things. And I was surrounded by people in high school that weren't. And oftentimes I'd be compassionate and understanding, and other times I'd be like a self-righteous prick. Like, and it's like God was still so compassionate with me, but he had to almost break me of me worshiping me so I could actually see him. Because for the longest time, I believed in him, but I was on the throne of my life, where it was still a Shawn show. It was still about me and if I'm good enough or am I bad. I was the focus. And it's like in the most, 4 or 5 years ago, since Jesus has been like king and supreme, I don't know. I'm not worried. Like, I don't know how to say it. Like, I'm not worried about my righteousness. He's taking care of that. Like, I'm not worried about anything other than to try to love like he loves and show people what he looks like. And that typically is not by telling them about him or talking about him. It's just by loving people where they are.
Yeah.
Like the last thing I think words don't speak as loud as actions. So I think it's more important for me to show Jesus than to talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
And tell people where they're wrong. We're all freaking wrong in so many areas. Yeah. And if someone was telling me where I'm wrong, like, so just, can you still love me where I'm at?
Yeah.
And that's where in my darkest seasons, God loved me to life instead of just revealing what I already knew. Because I feel like most of us, we have that conscience inside of us that's kind of like, it doesn't feel right where I'm at. Like I can tell I'm making excuses. And a lot of people though, Adrian, I don't think they're being truthful with themselves.
Well, a lot of people, and us included, because you never know when you're not being truthful with yourself. If you know that you're not being truthful with yourself, you're a sociopath. But most people aren't being truthful with themselves because they don't know that they're not being.
But I know I've lived a lie.
Themselves.
Have you ever? As I'm saying, have you ever been in a season where you kind of know you're living a lie?
Yeah. I was behaving inappropriately, and I needed to slow down. I needed to reconnect, and realign. Yeah, for sure. And I got my ass handed to me.
I was making excuses, but deep down inside, I kind of knew better. But I was just like, almost like I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be selfish and indulge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good experience to go through, to get the shit kicked out of you, because, then you realign and recognize that, you're not as important as you thought you were, but you are infinitely important.
I totally believe
right?
That. Yeah.
So
do you believe you're finding God, or is God finding you?
Do I believe that if I am finding God, or is God finding me? I don't believe that there is a finding process. I believe that the found is already happened.
For you or everybody?
I think everybody. That deep within inside of themselves, there is a direct connection to the divine, but it's deep. So the process isn't waiting for God out here to come find me, or for me to get my shit together and go find God. It's a process of digging deeper and deeper internally until we get through all of our egotistical bullshit, through all those layers, and we find out what our true identity is, which is not this. It's something that's eternal in nature, and it's foundational to who we are. So when you say finding, that indicates somebody moving from one place to another place to find somebody, right? I don't think that that's the process.
Well, or like you're searching in to look.
But that's inward.
Right. But
and it's already there.
Sure, but discovering.
Discovery is a better
word. Okay.
Better word than finding. Yeah. So I think we are continually in a discovery of who we are. And sometimes we're not really paying attention to that discovery process, and that's when we lose sight. And at other times, we're really looking for that. Now, I think sometimes God reaches in through our heart and kind of pokes us. I've had those experiences where it's like, hey, pay attention, right? I've had those experiences. Something happens. It's a thought or an emotion or an experience that's out of the normal kind of movement of reality for me. And I go, whoa, that was an exclamation point. What's going on here? Okay, let's focus, right? So it's a process of like going deeper and getting clearer continually, right? But I don't think I don't see it being lost and found. I see it being ignorant I think it's a level of ignorance is what it is.
What about like activation?
Activation,
Like it's
probably,
there, but people don't always activate it.
Yeah, I think activation could be part of it.
Like it's dormant.
It's dormant. Dormant might be a good. I always like to. So, like as you and I talk together, a lot of the analogies that you use versus the analogies that I use are foundationally different. There's different players. You use the family orientation,
personhood,
father, mother, child relationship with how you see God. And I prefer not to look at it that way because I believe that that limits, and this may go totally contrary to the way that it makes sense to you, okay? But seeing God as my father and Christ as my elder brother and the Spirit as the comforter, right? And that they are somewhere in my cognition here as a family unit that loves me, right? I see that as not as intimate as the idea that they're right here in my heart. Okay? So I try and resist the dual nature, the dualistic nature of seeing God outside. That's when I've said non-dual. The non-dual philosophy in Hinduism is that there is only one consciousness. It is all accessible through the heart, through your soul. So that resonates for me much quicker. My whole life up until like I was around 30, like I had that experience, I'd always prayed outward to God. And it was difficult for me to kind of connect. Sometimes I have really powerful experiences and might go a long time without having anything, just like feel like I'm just speaking into a cavern. You know what I mean? As soon as I started meditating and going this direction, I almost every single time I meditated or prayed, I connected with the divine. Every single time. So my experience, and that might be the case for people. People might be totally different, right? But that's the way it works for me as I go inward, right? And so I try and like get rid of that concept of family and God's up here and looking down and I try and get rid of that.
Well, so in all fairness, those are separate things, just in the sense of like I still believe in the Spirit in me, in Christ in me, the hope of glory. But the only reason why I use the language of father, I mean, Jesus is less of a brother. It's more of like a bridegroom, which is kind of like a bride of Christ. Like, I know that's a little weirder, but it's not in the sense of oneness. Like, if you understand true oneness, like, you're not one with your brother the way that you're one with your spouse.
Yeah, it's different for sure.
I
get it.
Brother's like, hey, buddy, like we'll be in this neck to neck. And it's like, Jesus sometimes could be like a friend that's like a brother closer like that. But the intimacy aspect is that of like
a spouse.
Spouse, where it's like,
I get that.
But I just use that because there's nothing that we know as well as what we know from, like, I don't know, like,
well, that's
there's nothing that's truer to our experience.
Yeah, that's what we know.
Yeah. So I guess I liken it to those types and shadows because
it's referential. You can understand it.
Like, there's some circles I flow in, and again, they refer to God as simply ultimate reality or spirit.
Yeah,
spirit.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't understand. You go home, the person calling it spirit, and you look in the eyes of your husband, and you see his face, and you can actually like smell him, touch his hair, understand his story. There's something. Yes, it's embodied, but it's also like very personal. And then you just take this non-personal, no heart.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, that's not an upgrade. Like,
well, for you, it's not.
No,
it's not.
I would argue for anybody because it's just.
I don't get any. I don't believe I've had one experience in my life where the image of Christ or God as a form outside of me has actually gendered or germinated a spiritual response.
Sure. That's not the point of what I'm actually saying. So what I'm saying is when you say spirit doesn't have a story. Spirit doesn't have it just is. Okay, when you talk about God as Yahweh, the Father, okay, so if God is I am with a story, that means he could have thought about us before we were formed in our mother's womb, like it says in Jeremiah.
Right.
I dreamt about you. Like, so when you were just spirit, not even like in your flesh yet, I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
God knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. There's nothing crazier than the God of the universe saying, I formed you, I created you, I knew you, and I long to know you now, even as you have autonomy, conscience, cognition, choice, freedom to choose me or freedom to turn away.
Mm-hmm.
I am pursuing you actively because there's nothing greater I desire than to know you. I'm sorry, there's no abstraction that's greater than that. Like we're humans and we understand all of like any great story, right? Like, Hollywood. I don't know. It's never that there's some heartbeat or some pulse in the universe, and that pulse, if it communicated, it would be more personalized. But no, it doesn't communicate. It just is. Well, does it care about me? No, it couldn't care. It just is. So should I care about it? You don't need to. It just is. Like, the greatest love story of all time is the fact that God took on flesh and said, I want you so bad, I will lay down my life and suffer as a human for you and stay a human the rest of my life with a glorified body, still fully God, but didn't walk as God on earth at all. Didn't use his power, laid it all aside, simply because he wanted to show humanity how much he loved us. Like, I'm just saying, like, that story is so scandalous. That's the only word I can use, because you have to come to grips with it. Either it's completely BS and the history of it, well, sure, he was a person, but like, I don't know how people deal with that. That's why all throughout history, the number one disruption in all of history is just Jesus. There's no other religion that has a disruptor that is as seismic as Jesus. Like, there's no comparison. And what do you do with that man that claimed what he claimed? And I'm just saying, like, at the heart of it isn't, well, you guys were all F-ups, and I had to come down here and take care of it just so that you could have a good life. Like the story was the most romantic, beautiful, like, unbelievable story. And we see glimpses of it in the way that you love your kids and in the way that you love. So that's why I'm just like, it's there everywhere. Like, to me, it's not like it's incongruent with the way that I have to love when I love my child, that it's hard, or my spouse when I have to forgive when it's hard. Like, there's just it's aligned to that, instead of it's altogether different on a completely different frame. And because it's a new frame and a new paradigm in a new dimension, therefore it's better. Like Avatar, people were committing suicide because James Cameron made an existence that seems so much better than what we had with the colors and and it's like, so are we needing it to be this Avatar that's so different, and now we have tails and we're blue, but it's this. I mean, I get part of it was similar, but I'm just saying, like, if I'm just a ghost floating on a cloud singing hallelujah 24/7, how is that ascension? Because some you know what I mean? Some ideas of ascension are just ambiguous abstractions. Mm-hmm. When this isn't ambiguous. The idea of the millennial reign, or like whatever, the second coming and us being with God for eternity, actually means we're in resurrected bodies. And my belief on that is just that there's certain spectrums of light we haven't been able to see in these bodies, they get lifted. There's certain tastes, smells, sounds. So it's almost like Avatar in the sense that everything's more vibrant. You know, Jesus walked through walls, but he still ate. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying this idea of this embodied experience not being so less than, because that was the way the Greeks were like, we're fallen, this is so less than, and heaven must just be ethereal and beyond imagination. And it's like, well, what if, like you said though, us being like God and having divine in us, what if this is almost as close to heaven as possible, and heaven's just without the fallenness, and the colors are turned up, and the experience is turned up, and we can be more present? Like, what if this is amazing? Like, it doesn't demean our existence here. It adds a vibrancy to it that's like, man, this life is so precious. This life that we've been given is so amazing, and it's that close to actually what God designed, because there's a person component to God that cares about our personalities, our personhood, cares about us having kids. It's not this foreign thing where it's like, well, he's an alien. He doesn't necessarily understand humans, and we have kids. And like, does that make sense?
Yeah,
like, it's not some foreign thing.
Yeah. The idea of the metaphorical representation of the family unit and the relationships that are involved in that ring true to you at your core, right? And I think a lot of people feel that way. I mean, I think a lot of Christians feel that way. I mean, in Mormonism, I mean, they take that to the next level, right?
With the planets or the be with
Well,
them.
it's just that what we are is we are baby gods, and we take this body and we take our spouse and we live through eternity with them, and we become as if we are gods. I mean, it takes this family thing. I mean, don't bag on the whole theological problems there.
Yeah.
But the idea of the family unit as like resonating through eternity, there's not a religion out there that like lines that idea up better than Mormonism. So, and which is one of the reasons why so many people love Mormonism and why they convert, because they do see God as their father. And they don't say this, but a lot of like subtext in the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, is that it's our Heavenly Mother, right? And they see as Christ as the Son. They actually see it as a family unit, not as the Spirit, the Holy Spirit being some ambiguous kind of like whatever it might be, but it does these things, right? So they take that to the next level, and they say, you and your spouse, you can be married through the priesthood, the authority of the priesthood, for time and all eternity. You carry the family bonds through death into eternity. So that idea is like hits hard for people. They're like, that's exactly what I want. I want to be with my family forever, right? So that's what the foundation of the Mormon theology is rooted in. So I understand the parallelism of seeing God and Christ as the bridegroom and the Spirit, and that we have a personal one-on-one family relationship with Christ. I totally get the value of that, and I honor it. I totally honor it. And and the way you've kind of explained, like, well, God is this ambiguous heartbeat in the middle of nowhere. Like, where's the relationship, right? Where's the relationship? Well,
and I'm not saying that's how you picture it.
No, that's not how I picture it, because I think that is that I would agree with you. I don't think that.
But I think some people do.
Some people probably do. Like deism, God's out there. He doesn't really care. He just kind of kicked the earth off, and you guys just figure it out, kind of thing, right? I don't think that. I'm torn. I'm torn in my understanding of what's going to happen in terms of the physicality of our bodies and what's carried through death, right? I've had a couple of experiences that have kind of convinced me that there is some physicality, whether it's energy or something like that we do carry through death. Stuff that I'd be like, that just didn't happen because I thought it was going to happen, or I created it in my head, like stuff that's like, oh, dude, okay, obviously that's the thing that's going to happen, kind of thing, right? But at the same time, I'm torn because I think that the ultimate reality, I believe this, and I'm kind of convinced of it. I don't know it yet, okay? But it's more than belief. I'm like on the precipice of saying, yeah, I kind of know it, right? But I'm not there yet. That the ultimate reality of your existence and my existence is that we are all gods, divine, having this experience, and we feel like we're separated from God, but the ultimate reality is that we are not, and we can find that divinity within us. And that story fits very closely aligns with the atonement of Christ and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's more of a metaphysical kind of like story where we go deep within to find our divinity. And so in saying that, I don't know, like in Hinduism, in non-dual Hinduism, they talk about, at death, or in Buddhism, like in Zen Buddhism, they talk about, you're a drop in the ocean, and, a splash comes and a drop comes up for a little while, and it's a drop. And when it comes back down and hits the ocean, now it's the ocean, and you're the drop, and you're going to go back to the ocean. But you are the ocean. Right now, you're just experiencing that moment in time where you're the drop. I mean, those are like super romantic kind of ways to describe how life might actually be, like what reality might be. And in that description, you don't carry on a body. You don't carry on a subtle body or a spirit and move on with families. You are the ocean kind of thing. And so I'm torn, like maybe it's both, maybe it's one. I don't know, but I have had experiences with both of those kind of things like playing out inside of me where they both make sense. And I don't know if it's like, holy shit, maybe this is like quantum mechanics, right? You look at depending on how you look at a light ray, it's either a particle or a wave, right?
True, yeah.
Right? So maybe we have an experience that is both a particle and a wave, and we experience them both at the same time. Who knows what's exactly going to happen? But I haven't I don't know if I'll answer those questions before I die, but I'm very comfortable knowing that wherever I am taken or wherever I go afterwards, it will be the best place for me. I don't feel like I'm going to be punished for wickedness that I've committed in this life. I think I've been very responsible in trying to work out my own salvation and work out the shit in me, right? And I've got hopefully a lot more time to do that. So
remember though, I think this is where I pressed on you in Utah. Yeah. Just the idea that that is very much the compulsion from a little bit of where you came from of working it out versus the scandalous thing about Jesus is he just said receive.
I think that I don't know if I appreciate you calling that out. I don't know if I'm saying that because I have done things that I need to repent for. What I'm saying is that I think that there's still fine tuning that needs to go on in the way that I work in this world.
Sure.
I need to get clearer. I need to get more grounded. I need to not be hijacked by this desire or that desire. It's just the ongoing work of trying to get clear and aligned. And all I'm saying is that I think I'd like more time to continually work on that. Now, whether I'm successful or not, I don't think that hinges on me going to heaven or not. I don't think that is. I'm just saying that with the opportunity that I have to be here in this life, I think that there's some clarity and some maybe a little bit of confusion inside that I need to let go of. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
I won't want to die with some of that not having been worked out through it, right?
So I guess this is what I mean by my arguments or my thoughts aren't biblical in the sense of I'm not trying to prove something about the inherency of Scripture, even though I believe it as a sub-belief behind just knowing Jesus, meaning because I don't know, I've gone down those roads where they're like, oh, but the Council of Nicaea, and I've heard the people say this and that, and I've seen people go to Bible school, and instead of being called seminary, we call it cemetery because it literally just like kills their childlike faith and just makes them almost like professional Christians that don't know God anymore. Almost like a Pharisee or a Sadducee. Like, cool. You just graduated but lost your heart, and now you know the nothing. You don't know God anymore.
Right.
But
you can
know
argue
the text and the whatever.
You can argue, but you don't. Doesn't.
So I don't think God's in that. But I'm just saying, when I think about existence, when I think about experience, when I think about the greatest joys and the lowest tragedies, they all involve people in relation to people. Yeah. And all I mean by that is, like, if you could leave me alone on an island where I could get whatever food I wanted miraculously, have whatever stuff I wanted, drive whatever cars, have whatever house, but the only stipulation is I couldn't ever see another human again.
You wouldn't do it.
What the hell is the point? Because my biggest point, kind of, again, back to the abstraction, which is not you, it's just the new age whatever, is that I don't think there's anything greater, and I'd love for you to answer, almost in our experience here, than the fact that I can sit across from you, look you in the eyes, and actually know you in some part, in some way, based off of how you want to be known, based off of how you let me know you. And the fact that there can be intimacy in real time, in a moment, between human to human. There's nothing wrong with fishing. There's nothing wrong with going into nature like Henry David Thoreau and sitting there. I think nature's beautiful. I've gone on camping trips by myself, and I would rather have had someone with me.
Yeah.
There's something so beautiful about the ability to know and be known. And I don't think that is something that doesn't point to the greater reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. I understand your explanation that the greatest experience. I'll just repeat it back to you to make sure that I see it correctly. The greatest experience that we have in this existence is the relationship that we have with another human being, our spouse or kids or whatever it might be, right? So using that same analogy, that seems to be the greatest experience, or would make sense that would be the greatest experience with God, right? To have a personal one-on-one experience. Is that what you're saying?
Meaning it connects with the fact that, like, Adrian has a face. Adrian has eyes. He has a hope. He's got hopes and dreams. He has a something that's unique about you. It's just you. Like, no one else on this planet is you. Mm-hmm. And just you being you is, like, cool. It's, like, awesome. I like the fact that you're not trying to be someone else. And I wouldn't say that every single person walks in their originality and in their uniqueness. I think some people are stuck on the hamster wheel of trying to figure out who they have to be, or is it what my father wanted me to be, or the trending's wanting me to, and they're never actually getting to follow that acceptance and that voice of, like, this is me. And when I see originals that have been like, this is me, there's a different gravitas to their actual energy in real time. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not, there's a different transparency, and it's almost like it lights me up in a sort of way where it's like, cool. Like, I don't know, I'm a spirit being in a body that gets to hang out with another spirit being in a body in a way that's real. And that to me is, I'm just saying, I feel like is a hint or type and shadow at something that, like, is in the revealing the nature of God to want to know humans. Mm-hmm. Like, my desire to want to know my wife, my desire to want to know my kids. This morning, I have no clue what happened. I got up early because, I got up 5:55 to get here. And I came in late last night, like 12. So no one saw me last night. I kissed Kelly. Then I left early this morning. And as I look in my one daughter's room, I still see she's sleeping. So I kind of close the door so the light's not coming in because her blinds are closed. And then I go to right at the top of the stairs, I look in my boys' room. And all of a sudden I see Elijah. And he just kind of rouses a little bit. And then the second he sees me, he just lights up and gets up. And it's like, I just go over to him and like hug him. And it's like, it was a simple moment, like just a super simple moment. He's 13 years old? And I just got to hold my little boy. And it's like, man, like there's nothing greater than that. Like there's nothing greater than that. And it's like, if I feel like that about my son, and I know I could be wicked, I know I can be like a fool, I know I'm not that great. I can't imagine how God feels about me. I guess that's my point. Like it's an order of magnitude greater. And I know the way that me and my effed upness feels about my son and my wife and my friends and sometimes the stranger that you see. And in my small capacity to love, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. It feels good to feel like you're loving someone. It feels good to almost feel, I would say, God's heart for someone else. And yet I can't imagine what that is without the restrictions of just the fact that I'm not perfect. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like that to me is like, wow, I can't believe that like God doesn't love like that. And somehow he doesn't he would be so jealous of us if this is what we get to experience. And yet, you couldn't even say jealous because again, in the New Age thing, God couldn't experience jealousy or he couldn't I don't know how to say it. Like, it's just weird that we have this human experience that is so unbelievable and beautiful and profound. And then we caricature some supernatural greater than experience with God that has no it's not even a shadow of what we experience. I don't even know where we're getting it off of, except that maybe we had a really bad experience with our parents. We're really, really hurt with other people. And we just think it can't be relational because then maybe it's safe. Right. Maybe it's the God that I see that I want it to be. Okay.
So let me ask you a question. And I appreciate you sharing all that, and I totally respect it. So in this relation, this love that you feel for your child, and you're looking at the depth of that, and it obviously rocks you. Super simple, tender moment, but it hits you hard, hits you at the core of your being. And then you say to me, I can't understand how God can't see me that way, basically, or more than that.
Yeah.
Okay? So my question is this: have you had the experience where God shows you that love? You have.
Undone.
Okay, so if you've had the experience, you're not describing it to me like you've had the experience.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I'm trying to say it gently where I'm trying to be kind about, what I'm basically saying is because of this, of what I see, what I've experienced, and what I've experienced with God, I don't know how anyone's telling something else.
I see what you mean.
That's my soft way of positioning it so that someone else could swallow it instead of it just being like,
boom, drop it on them.
Yeah.
No, I think that, this is, I think we can riff on this for a little bit because, you have that experience with your child, and then you have the experience similar to that, maybe to a greater degree or lesser degree, whatever that might be. But you have the same experience with God, that you feel the love of God and you see it as a father to you, father to child relationship in the same manner that you've shown your love to your child. And that makes sense for you, okay? So I have had similar experiences like that, okay? But my experiences have not been an identifiable father showing me the love. You see what I'm saying?
Just the feeling.
I just have a feeling of infinite love and peace
Yeah.
that just flows through me.
But you also destroyed the frame because you didn't want to get biased by the frame, right?
Exactly. So my question is this, is that what I get worried about, because I've thought about this specific kind of conundrum that I'm in, which is I've eradicated the framework and I removed the idea that God is my father, Christ is my bridegroom, all kind of stuff, right? I got rid of that Mormon framework and Christian framework, okay? So I still have the experience, but I don't imprint the experience with a father sending that message.
Totally.
So my question is always, for myself, has always been like, am I seeing a more authentic experience because I haven't put the imprint that's God the Father sharing that with me? Is it more authentic? Or have I reduced the experience because I've eradicated the truth of it by getting rid of the idea, right?
And that's where I don't, obviously I don't know, but like meaning the whole thought of what I was sharing with you about Moses in Egypt, wilderness, coming back. I did a really bad job while we were eating at Senor Taco. Sorry, I just felt like I had to mention it by name.
We went to Senor Taco and got the biggest damn taco I've ever seen.
The basic idea, I'm still not communicating it well. It's the idea of like, man can oppress women in their strength, so women should come out of that, have the ability to systemically come out of that oppression, but it doesn't mean that then a woman can't submit herself to a man's strength because she knows that man, her husband, is safe. Yeah. Even if there's a chance that the structure of it can be oppressive. So it's like Mormonism can be oppressive. Christianity, dogma can be oppressive. And you've identified that. So you've gotten rid of any form or semblance of the oppression because you seek purity, undefiled. Love it. That's what I'm saying. Like, God's like, this is amazing. But it also doesn't mean that like, that it couldn't be Jesus in an undefiled way just because the system
I get it.
was so convoluted.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to be part of your story or if you've ascended and broken free and it's even greater than that restriction that I'm under.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? We don't know.
I mean, one of the concerns I've had is like, you know, I mean, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, but you know, in Christianity and in Mormonism, I mean, there is a very in many of the theological frameworks. I mean, there's not all Christians are the same, right? They don't all believe the exact same thing. But in most of them, there's this idea that we have this one shot. We got this life, and we have to live it, and we have to choose correct. And if we don't live up to our full potential with this help of Christ, sacrificing and filling in the gaps where we've fallen short, so to speak, we won't live with God again. We won't be able to go to the highest echelon of the kingdom of God and live with God, right? So that is a very kind of cool idea and terrifying idea, right? Because you never know if you've done everything you possibly could.
But I don't think that's the rubric.
Okay, no, that's not the rubric. But I'm just saying.
But it could be for a lot of people.
It could be. It could be for a lot of people.
You know,
that was definitely part of my rubric, right? So as I've kind of moved out, but kind of retained and rebuilt this kind of spiritual rubric is a good thing. For me, I have this little sneaky like thought that always pops into my mind, like, you know, you're doing good, but you know, you've forgotten Christ and now you're not going to go to heaven. And I have to like,
but that sounds condemning. So because it sounds condemning, I have a feeling the source of that isn't God. But I'm wondering if because it's saying that, it would never allow you to actually come to Jesus in a right way. Because
it might. It could be the trick. That could be the trick of it, right? So who knows? But I'm just letting you know that that's playing out, you know, in my mind and in my heart.
So I don't think the rubric is performance. Mine has zero to do with performance. Like I would have no hope if there was performance because I have not performed well. I'm on exterior metrics, I'm a failure in so many ways. But if there's something about a God that's like, but Shawn, like, I see your heart, not in some like, oh, you were really kind and you didn't really mean to kill the person, but you did. I saw it. Like, nothing like that. I mean, like, actually genuinely seeing the truthfulness of what is in my heart of someone that, like, I don't want to lie to myself about the fact that I think I care about people, but I don't. But even, I don't know how to say it. That's why I come back to this. It's the idea that, like, what's a good example of this? I don't know. Like, I've read a lot about, I can't say that. I was going to say Elijah Desmond. I'm like, if he ever heard
Elijah.
we'll just go with I already said it.
Elijah, you're on the podcast now, dude.
Like, there's so much information about him. He's all over dentistry. And I can be like, oh, you don't understand. Like, oh yeah, I know him. I know about him. I tell people about him. And then, like, ultimate reality is, like, we're squaring off and he's like Shawn, you didn't know me. Like, you didn't know me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Oh, of course I did. Shawn, we saw each other at 3 trade shows. Like,
Yeah.
You didn't know me. Like, what are the odds that you would say to your kids, you don't know me? Like, think about that. Would you say to Emily, your wife, you never knew me?
No, I wouldn't.
Would she ever have to worry? I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's not about, were you a good wife? Like, performance-wise, I'm going to score you according to something.
Oh, I'm scoring my wife for sure.
It's about, like, you guys know each other. Like, you're one. With the scars.
Yeah. With the
right?
scars. Yeah, for sure.
You're still one. Mm-hmm. So when God, like, oh, you did all these things in your name, I never knew you. I don't think that's like remember, he says, I never knew you. He didn't say you weren't good enough. He didn't say you didn't attain something well enough. He didn't say you didn't mature yourself. You didn't reach a certain height. You didn't attain godliness. He's like, you actually did all these things that looked really, really Christian in my name, but I never knew you.
Yeah.
I never knew you. It says Adam knew Eve, yada. Adam, yada, Eve, and they conceived. Like, to know someone, I think there's a lot of people that aren't known and they don't let someone know them and they don't know God. Does that make sense? You don't settle for the fake. You have to know. You and your wife, I believe you guys really know each other. When you talk about your kids, you know them. Like, it comes down to intimacy because that's reality. To me, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not that smart. I've just boiled most of my conclusions down to what I know about God, his heart, based off of also my experience in life.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to make some weird points that are disconnected from my reality. My reality is, like, I love my kids imperfectly, like crazy imperfectly. I still get mad at them. I still say stupid stuff. I still raise my voice. And yet they forgive me and they love me and I love them. And in this imperfect relationship, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know them and they know me. And I think that's how it is with God. He's like, yeah, if you walked with me, like, you're mine. It's not about not falling. It's not about not stumbling. It's not about trying to become good enough to walk with him. Look at the people that walked with Jesus on the earth. Tax collector, that was like the worst thing imaginable.
Worse than lawyers.
At that time. A prostitute? No one wanted to be associated with someone like that. And here he is walking with them, giving them dignity, letting them walk with the God-man. He's like, yeah. He blew up all the religious ideas of what God was about at the time, which is why they crucified him, because he literally just effed the whole establishment, just dropped a bomb. But the culmination of what Jesus did wasn't some provocative thing about his lifestyle or the way he spent money or the way he exerted power or the way that he was sophisticated and was able to, influence Rome or some marketing tactic. It's that he loved weak and broken people and convinced them that they were his, even though the world wrote them off.
I love it. I love it.
And I think
I don't have anything to say. That sounds great. I agree. Yes.
And that's why I am such a fan of you, Adrian, because you haven't settled for all that counterfeit. There's a lot of counterfeit stuff that makes people feel good about how they're being a good Christian, how they're being a good believer. But that's across the board. You could be feeling like you're really devout if you're an aesthetic Buddhist that's denying themselves and, being really good at denying the flesh and the pleasures of this world. And then some of that, like, they're missing out on.
Yeah.
So there's lots of structures we set up so that we can be great and feel good about how we're doing. And like following Jesus is the opposite.
I find that very untenable. When I think about living a certain way and meeting certain demands that then fit within the context of whatever. It's like letter of the law versus spirit of the law kind of stuff. I mean, Jews, I used to serve a mission in New York City, worked with met and worked with a lot of Jewish people. On the Sabbath, they don't push the elevator button, because that's like a letter of the law thing. Like if they push the button, it's like it's a big freaking deal, right? And I was always like, I don't get it. Like, I don't think God really cares if you push the elevator button, but it's a big freaking deal to them, right? So in Mormonism and in Christianity, wherever you're at, okay, there's a letter of the law usually established that really is for people to kind of begin the process of orienting their life around the religious community, right? But at some point, you have to move beyond the letter of the law. You move into the spirit of the law, which is the whole Old Testament, New Testament thing, right? And so what in my deconstruction and reconstruction of my religious experience, I have tried to remove as much every time I come across something where I feel good about myself because I've managed to do this thing or whatever it might be, I recognize that as deception.
Wow. See, like that is so profound. Why do you have this as an anchor? You understand that you could
because
get
it's the tricky
deceived?
thing. Well, because if there was deception in this life, it wouldn't appear as wickedness. It would appear as something that's good, right?
Totally.
Right? It would appear to be good.
Like an actual counterfeit looks like $100 bill.
Yeah. It's going to be a counterfeit, right? So, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't behave certain ways and feel good about yourself and whatnot. Sure. But you just have to be really, really. I've had to be really careful about that. So, in addition, I think this is actually might be kind of a fun little thing. We can keep going for a few more minutes. Are you good? Okay. Yeah. We're going to make a little bit of a shift here, okay, which I think will be an interesting topic.
Shift happens, buddy.
Okay. So there's a methodology that I've adopted that I think works really well for me in terms of identifying truth and identifying a path of where I should go in my life, okay? So my subjective experience, I pay attention to it. I do a lot of prayer. I do a lot of meditation. Well, I don't do a lot. I mean, I do enough to kind of like stay grounded, okay?
Sure.
I wouldn't say a lot because some people meditate 4 hours a day and they're, that's all they do.
Sure.
So, but I've adopted prayer that I grew up with into kind of a meditative prayer process in my life. And so I'll meditate for, maybe 20 to 45 minutes in a typical session. Okay. And that gives me enough time to kind of go deep and think through things and whatnot. So as I'm working through my thoughts and my emotions and my belief systems, and I'm seeing how these things play out inside of me, like my thoughts are kind of top level, They're kind of driven by emotions. Emotions are driven by belief systems. They kind of all are kind of connected, and everybody has some kind of a system like that, right? And I kind of have a pretty clear understanding of how my system works. One of the things that has helped me to understand whether I should believe or not believe, move forward, not move forward, okay, is because, hold that thought, because when I kind of like chopped the religious dogma out from underneath me and I put the scriptures away, now what's how do I make decisions on what is moral and ethical? And how do I know if my behavior is actually correct or not? Okay, because sometimes we behave in what we are absolutely confident is correct, and we go 6 months and we look back and we're like, that was not the right way to behave. We can't see it. We can't see our own behavior clearly and objectively. It's like seeing through, colored glasses. You don't know that the whole world is green because you have glasses on. It just shows the whole world is green, so you don't recognize green, right? So it's like the question becomes, if I'm not going to use the scriptures as metaphors and myths and stories to guide how I make decisions in my life, how do I guide myself? Okay? So what I have found works for me is this, is that when I am evaluating my system and a thought or an emotion comes up or an idea or a concept, if it's terrifying, I go toward it rather than pushing it away, even if it feels like a demon.
So terrifying, like you could say a sort, like almost synonymous with like fearful?
So,
or different a little bit.
If it's fearful or terrifying, I walk towards it. So I'll give you an example. Theologically, okay? Growing up Mormon and Christian, it had been drilled into my soul that the Jewish nation are the chosen people of God. And I saw them in my mind's eye as elevated in stature in God's eyes, because it's just like baked in to Christian theology, because Christianity came out of Judaism. And so I always saw Jews as like these super special people, like literally, like, and I didn't even know any Jews growing up, right? I just like, Jews are kind of like hallowed, and because I study from their book, I follow their rabbi, right? So, hold on.
That's a pretty contentious claim.
Well, it's not. He wasn't. Christ was a rabbi. He was Jew.
Not there.
He wasn't a Christian because it didn't start until after he died, right?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, this is no bag on Jews. I have lots of Jewish friends now, and I love the Jewish people. Yeah. But there was like this thing in my mind, right? So I began to think, wait a minute. I think they're just like me, and we're all the same, right? And a fear came upon me that I was somehow undermining the religious authority of Judaism and Christianity. It was kind of a scary feeling that I got. Weird. So I thought, I could see that fearful, terrifying feeling or thought of you should not be thinking this as a message from God, or I could see it as a signpost.
You're heading in the right direction.
That I'm heading in the correct direction.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because you're threatening I'm
threatening the foundation of a belief system, and if you can erode it a little bit, then you can kind of like clear it off and see what it really is and what it looks like, right? Yeah. So in terms of a philosophical, religious like practice, what I have done is I have always gone towards the thing that is most fearful to challenge where that fear came from. And then what I find is that after I've investigated it, it's not fearful anymore, and then I see it for what it really is, and sometimes it's valuable and sometimes it's not.
That's really cool.
So I mentioned earlier, I mean, maybe it was yesterday we talked about it. It's like, is Christ the Savior of the world? Now, if you were to say, and I don't want you to do this, but I just want you to, it's a thought experiment, okay? You don't even need to do it, okay? But if you talk to a believing Christian, a true believing Christian, to consider the idea that Christ is not the Savior of the world, it's fucking terrifying, okay? Because it's the denial of the Holy Spirit, which is the only thing you can't be forgiven for, okay? Yeah. It is the terrifying thing to consider. Well, I went through it, and it was freaking terrifying, and it scared me. And what I realized when I got through that is that, okay, some of that may have been dogmatic repetition. It could be just theology, and some of it might be real, right? And so I find that methodology for me is the correct process, or it is a tried and true process for me. I'm not suggesting, though, that process is a finalization of all my learning, right? So, for example, like right now, I have a little bit of a fear of reaccepting Christ as my Savior without justifiable without evidence that I've had an experience like that, right?
Yeah.
So I have fear about going down that path of maybe reproving it. But that might be the signpost for me to go down that path.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's a continual like reinvestigation of the thing that is most terrifying to you. That's what I found has been super, super helpful for me. Most people, when I usually have this conversation with a Mormon friend or a solid Christian, what they immediately tell me, almost unanimously, is that the fearful thing is deception from the devil, okay? That this process of like accepting and being willing to go towards something that is potentially demonic or evil or wicked or a lie or terrifying or whatever it might be is Satan trying to draw me off the path of righteousness or whatever it might be.
Well, I think that would just be a little too naive because...
Well, that's I would say, well, if that's the case, I want to find out if it really is Satan or not, and I want to move forward, right?
Yeah, meaning like, I think your spirit is honing what a lot of people kind of that in my camp call like discernment, where you're trying to just discern.
I'm trying to, like, because I don't have the stories.
Yeah, right. But even I would just say like, even as that's what I'm saying. Like I call myself a Christian because like that's the thing where it's like I identify as a Christian knowing that I don't know which percentage of Christians are like, but I just can't care. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there's a ton of people that call themselves Christians that do terrible, like not my problem. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
But meaning like I still have to just have this discernment on how I follow even within the Bible. Like meaning like there's enough crazies out there that like it takes the spirit to interpret the spirit.
Yeah.
Like, so even that, like, I'm sure sometimes you go toward what is almost threatening you through intimidation, terror, fear. But I'm also sure maybe even without knowing, you probably also make decisions based off of just where there's peace. Like often.
Well, yeah.
Now, maybe not spiritually, but
decisions become much clearer.
Like I'm sure that's also a sign of you sometimes being like, I don't know how to describe it other than like there's a peace in my spirit.
Yeah.
And this just, so not everything's like, well, there's waves in my spirit and this seems terrifying. Let me partner with this person in business.
Right.
Right. Do you know what I'm saying? But I think what you are saying is anytime there's the established voice that says you're about to cross the line that can never be crossed, Adrian.
Yeah.
You're about to buck the system. You're about to undo the curtain that shows the great and terrible Oz.
Yeah.
That's like, no, don't pay attention to the man.
Yeah.
That you're like, well, wait, let me just go a little further. Like, let me just see, because I won't be intimidated.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, goes back to you as like a truth seeker. Like you have a certain tenacity and like integrity in the way that you are going to find out. And but even dude, with some of your trips, someone could have said, "Hey, this is what you get. You know, there's some dangers in this," and you're like,
"What do you mean? Trips like, oh, like psychedelic trips?
Yeah.
Oh,
Meaning you're like, I want to find out."
I was like going San Diego,
but like you get what I'm saying. You're kind of like the whole like, I don't know. Let me see.
Well, you know, and I don't suggest that that's a good model. I'm just expressing like my experience. Like if I talk to my dad about this, my dad is the opposite end of the spectrum. Like he is so like never ever freaking gonna cross the line with anything. I mean, he's never touched alcohol or a cigarette or coffee in his entire life.
But the question is why? Because do you know exactly why? Like, is it because of fear of screwing up?
It is because the way that he functions in the world, he functions better with rules that guide, that he feels comfortable within, and he doesn't want to cross the line or push. It's just his nature. And that might have happened the way he was raised. I don't know. But some people just feel like learning through trial and error is not worth it. You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah, but it's back to kind of what I was saying about, like my pastor always says, is there's those who learn through the sting of the whip and those that learn through, again, seeing what someone else does wrong.
Yeah. And I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Growing up, most of the time I learned by seeing other people because my brother was 13 months older than me.
Yeah, so he's always screwing up.
Split his head open 4 times, broke his arm. He was always going a little further, a little higher, a little faster. And something would happen, and I'd be like, "Oh, I probably should." I got like baked in caution, simply because I saw my brother on every family gathering end up having to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, don't do that." But then there was times in my life where I shook my fist at God, and I was like, "Why don't you ever let me get burned? Like, why don't you ever let me fall? Like I can't have a normal life. Like every single time there's a little bit of a fire, and I go to play with it, you just put it out." Like, what the heck? Like, why can't I just have a normal life?
Yeah.
And what ensued was normal and almost lost my life. Like, that was very much
Were you blaming God for the fact that you weren't living a happy life? Like, what do you mean by that? Because God, I don't see God as the one dictating your life.
Well, hold on. So no. Meaning I felt like there was a lot of circumstances where God gave me the grace, let's say, to make a good decision when I didn't have to in my upbringing. And then I became resentful of that through stupid thinking. And I was like, what the heck? Like, why do I have some other standard where somehow other people can waste their life away and play video games in certain seasons, but no, not Shawn. Shawn has his high calling. Like, he has to do the right thing. Like, F the right thing. I don't want to do the right thing for the right reason. Like, I don't want to do it just because it's the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm very much not like, I don't care about the rules. I want to follow a person. And if that person, that's the craziest thing. If you ever want like the craziest sense of adventure, like a wild goose chase, follow the living God, because he's constantly in motion. And this is what happens all the time, is that even throughout history, he's in motion, and all of a sudden there'll be a snapshot of him. And the Presbyterians are like, this is what God looks like. And then he keeps moving, and all of a sudden a snapshot. The Calvinists are like, no, this is what he looks like. And then he's still moving. And it's like, everyone just gets these snapshots, and they defend the snapshot. And he's like, cool, the snapshot, yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, that's also true about me. Sure. But like, just follow me.
Yeah.
It's going to be off the path. It's going to be outside the structure. It's going to make you sometimes wonder what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
But that's life, not some in the church, safe, follow the dogma. If you do these, pray the Hail Mary, you'll inherit eternal life.
Too easy.
Who wants that? That's not the adventure that God called us to. It's crazier than that. And there is a component of faith, though, because it's the same idea of when you get to the edge of a cliff, not one that you're going to die if you jump. Let's just say 45 feet. You go to Havasupai Falls. You go to Beaver Falls, or whatever one's 2 hours south of that. And you look down and maybe the waters are murky, maybe they're clear. There could be rocks, someone else jumped, and you're like, you know what? I don't exactly know. But I have a good feeling I'm going to be okay, but I just got to jump.
Yeah.
Some people never jump because they don't know. You can't know. So I think there's always going to be a little bit of a gap. Where it's the same idea with business. I always talk about that. Like the thing that makes the most sense to me is you go out on the harbor, and there's the sailboat. You've probably heard me say this, and you're dreaming of the ocean, the open ocean, but you know you have to get in the boat and you have to lift anchor. But guess what? It's super misty. Mm-hmm. I don't know, humidity, clouds, whatever it is. You've seen that on a harbor where it's misty, you can't see anything. Yeah. And it's almost like God's like, I've given you enough evidence. I've given you enough to connect the gaps of who I am, but you have to go through the mist. And I'm there, but you got to go through that because it qualifies those. Everyone that's like, not you, the people that are like, oh, if he showed up to me and said, I'm God, I'll believe in him. Even that, you wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't. And even then, what's it worth then? What is it worth? There is a mist. It is shrouded, but it's not like it's 1,000 miles and it's all mist and the whole time you're just lights off, walking by faith. It's not like that at all.
No, it's not.
It's like you knowing your wife's love. You have so much faith in it because you have evidence, but there's still moments where you have to believe. So yeah, I find myself in different times in my life where I don't want to get in the boat and lift the anchor and set sail because I don't know where I'm going to go.
Yeah. And
I want the guarantee. I want the reassurance. But the good news is, as in the Gospels, is that he's in the boat with you. Even he might be sleeping in the boat.
Yeah.
But he's in the boat. There was one time where I was doing a high ropes course with my friends up in Flagstaff. You ever done one of those? Mm-mm. Do you know what they are?
High rope, like are you climbing, like rock climbing?
No. So it's like a high ropes course. So meaning there's all those posts and you start up 15, 20 feet from the ground and then there's like cables and
gotcha.
Like cool, like you go from one challenge to the other. And for liability's sake, you have a harness and you're strapped in through a carabiner to like a cable so you can't fall. Mm-hmm. But every other guy, sorry if you guys are listening to this, I'm throwing you under the bus right now. They're all a little older than me. They're all holding on to the cable as they're navigating the tires or the logs or whatever.
They're freaking out.
And I'm like, oh, hell no. This is my moment. I'm Indiana Jones because I can cross the chasm of doom and I got a rope. So I was just having fun. And they're like, Shawn, how are you doing that? I'm like, guys, you have a freaking rope.
Yeah, you can't fall. Yeah.
And I remember it wasn't too long after that it just like dropped in my spirit one day when I was journaling in business. Because I was coming face to face with my fears of like stepping out. God's like, Shawn, I'm your rope. Like, I'm not going to let you fall. Mm-hmm. Like, go crazy. Go have fun. Like, so that's why like my whole narrative is never this like, I really have to be careful that I'm a good Christian. Oh my God. No, like I can dance. I can run, I can play, I can be in the sandbox. And every now and then, what do you do when a kid's in the sandbox? No. No, put down the snake. Like, just tell your kid, hey, watch out. No, danger here. Like, kids could just trust that you're going to put the fences up where they belong. Mm-hmm. There's freedom in the right spots. If you do something wrong, the parent's like, oh yeah, no. You don't want to do that. Trust me. Like, that sharp stick, you could poke your eye on it. Oh, okay. And I just let my father or my shepherd lead me. Like, it's not on me. I don't need to figure something out.
Right.
I get to be, to express. And, again, when it comes to branding, I always go back to light. Since I believe God is light, I believe each and every one of us made in the image of God actually can express our own light that shows a representation or an aspect of God that only we can show. Because since he's like infinite, like there's a literal aspect of the divine that he's allowed you to demonstrate and reveal that only you can do in that unique way. And in that sense, like in the world of abundance, it's not like, oh, sure, everyone normally just says money, right? Oh, I've got an abundant mindset, but they mean like there's enough money for all of us. Well, with light, there's enough light for all of us to shine our light.
Yeah.
And I'm not competing with you. I could never shine your light. No matter how hard I tried, I could never be Adrian because I don't have your story, your perspective, the things you've suffered, the ways in which God has shaped you to reflect his light in a certain way, almost like a prism. His light comes into you.
Sure.
And you...
But everybody's like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if they allow themselves to channel, if they allow themselves to be cut and shaped, you know, and some of that hurts. You know, yeah, I don't know. That's why my take isn't like sign up for a life where you have to be super disciplined, dedicated, and at the end you may not make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine's like, let the love of your soul just love you, receive it, love those people in your life, and live a grand adventure of trying to follow the living God, which I can't tell you this is exactly how you do it.
No, because it's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.